Hey everybody, this is Perch. Let's see. Well, let's see what you got to say. By the way, I've had some people take shots at this channel recently. It's like all he does is read viewer mail. Yeah, okay. I don't know. I mean, this isn't exactly a new and revolutionary idea, but I enjoy actually. I'm not in a comic shop right now, so people can ask me questions, and I kind of like this format. The only thing that I do wish was different, and I mentioned this before, is I could get on board with going back and doing a live stream if it could be some kind of call-in like show where people could come in, answer questions, go. Now the problem is some assholes would definitely manipulate and abuse it. They would for sure get in there and you would turn into people going to business for themselves and wanting to promote other shit like, why don't you like me, and just other nonsense. But some kind of college, I don't know, maybe there's a good way to do this. I'll think about it and would welcome suggestions. But let's talk about Red Band comics, because we're getting them right now with Blood Hunt and soon the Greg Capullo Wolverine. So let's see. This viewer is writing in asking about that. It says, "Dear Perchington, heir to the Perchington porno empire." Damn right. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. The comics collapse of the 90s was caused by many factors, including the burst of including the burst of speculator market, along with a variety of gimmicks to move books, usually some cover gimmick or a trading card packaged with it. Remember that? I think it was a Punisher where the comic had a bullet hole in it. There's a hole punched in the comic, and it seemed kind of cool if you didn't open up the comic, because then the whole comic had to be kind of written and drawn around this hole. And you're like, there's a hole. I remember a guy who was working in my comic shop at the time. We're unboxing that thing, and he's looking at this comic, and he goes, "I could put my dick through this." And then I couldn't think. Then unfortunately, I couldn't think of the comic any other way. It wasn't that big a hole either, so I think that was kind of a cell phone that the guy did. But also, what is it like? I do think there's truth to the. I think there's some truth that guys see holes and they want to put their dick in. I don't it's one of those things. It's biological. What can I say? All right, back to the mail. Sorry, you didn't expect that segue, did you? Okay. While neither the speculators nor gimmicks ever really went away, with variant covers becoming an increasing crutch to the sales. Who hasn't seen somebody at your LCS just pick up every cover of the latest Amazing Spider-Man out of a sense of collecting, where some titles only seem to exist for the number one variants and care little for the substance of the book? Yet the excess of the 90s is starting to creep back in, with foil variants the most damning of the state of the industry, the Red Band editions. Something about charging an extra $1 for an alternate version of a book just to see gorier kills. No real story changes, just more blood. We all know that Marvel is going to produce a lot more of these for the foreseeable future. And the rest of the industry will react accordingly, with others pushing to do it to further extremes. Somebody is going to do a XXX brand edition of a comic with nudity. But Marvel and DC aren't really going to go the pure nudity route. I beg to differ, but we'll get to that in a minute. Somebody at the big two will get the idea to produce inferior variants where the only difference is the hero's costume. Just imagine if Marvel printed an issue of Amazing Spider-Man with interior variants where in one he's wearing the black suit and in the other the classic, just like video game skins. I absolutely believe this is coming. You are going to get a Spider-Man book in the near future. I would go as far as say in the next 12 months, where the book is going to be printed 4 different ways, and you're going to get the different Spider-Man costumes. Maybe where this is going to happen is you're going to see a Miles Morales comics, like an anniversary issue. I mean, the way they number now, any issue could be an anniversary issue. But you're going to see a Miles Morales book, and they're going to time it sort of close to the Beyond the Spider-Verse, the next Spider-Verse movie. And in the comic, you're going to pick the Miles variant you want in the comic, and you're going to have Miles in 4 different costumes. But it won't be through the whole comic. It'll just be the 5 or 6 pages, when he's not eating or just having boring conversations and he's actually in costume. We'll have him, with the palette swap for the costumes. I guarantee you it's coming. Anyway, back to the mail. It says, but this isn't going to lead to anything healthy for the industry, because it's It's going to increase the focus on gimmicks and not what actually matters, story. You get into comics for the art, but you stay for the stories. Is buying 3 different copies of Captain Marvel just to see the story with different aspects of design? In this situation, let's assume they're the main Captain Marvel outfit or Miss Marvel look. Marvel's never going to do that. And a swimsuit edition to fit in the month's variant theme. Oh, we could all be so lucky. Is that really furthering the love of the medium of comics? Or is the whole variant market just built on exploiting the addicting feel of gotta catch them all? Variants are the junk food of comics. Thank you for your time. I mean, they are. They're the junk food of comics. They are an addiction. It's like sugar, where it may taste good and you may get some initial buzz out of it, but it is not sustainable. It's not healthy. And you're just destroying yourself if that's all you're eating. That is what ultimately these gimmicks are. And you're right. It won't lead anywhere good. And I think, it sounds artsy to say, you come for the art, but you stay for the story. But it's also true. No matter how you get around it, comic books are a recurring medium. It's designed to be a product that you buy on a monthly basis or quarterly basis or wherever else. And even if you have graphic novels, if you're leveraging and using the same characters, if you're using Superman, Batman, Spider-Man, Wolverine, whoever you happen to be, these characters are built on serialized storytelling. And so, the artists come and go. Todd McFarlane drew a hell of a good Spider-Man. We've seen a lot of good artists and bad artists on Spider-Man. And people will come and certainly buy more for the art. But the core foundation of people who are keeping the comic book industry afloat are doing so because of a love for the character, which is represented by the story. I'm not going to argue, is the writer more important than the artist? Because, what you need is both. It's a team that has to do it. But the writer should hook you in your heart, and the artist should hook you in your eyes. Sounds disturbing and possibly dangerous, but that is what it is. And I think that the challenge we have with these variants is they are absolutely gimmicks. They're absolutely going to be not thought through. I mean, put it this way. The Marvel is doing a summer vampire event with a red band edition where you get a gorier version of the comic. I could argue this is the best it's going to get, or maybe a different way to say it is this is the most thoughtful it's going to get. Because you can argue vampires are horror. Marvel is, they're beholden to more just superhero adventures. And so Marvel doing hey, we want to tell a superhero adventure, but we want to go ahead and, experiment with like really good visceral horror. Therefore, this red band is a way to have a gimmick and kind of there's some thought behind it. But when we get like, the new Warriors relaunch Red Band edition, then at that point, you'll be able to point to this and go, oh yeah, they're out of the idea was the gimmick. They got to the gimmick through a story idea. Somebody saying, hey, we're going to do a vampire story. Wouldn't it be really cool if we could, have a print a version that's like rated R instead of PG-13? How would that be? That could be pretty interesting. And thus the red band variant was created. But from there will come stupidity. Now, I like Greg Capullo as an artist and Jonathan Hickman as a writer, pretty good as well. We'll see how the comic is that they're doing together. You hope it's not just some kind of one-off thing that doesn't really matter. Let's do something to actually impact Wolverine's status quo. That'd be nice. But the red band edition of that has less to do with the story and less to do with why it's actually needed, and has a lot more to do with the fact that, it allows us a couple of panels of Greg Capullo hacking somebody's guts out of their stomach with his claws. That's ultimately what you're going to get. So they are absolutely going to drive this into the ground. Now, I believe that one of the big two will experiment with the adults-only version where, and it'll probably be DC, and it's going to be something they do in Vertigo or a place where they've already kind of experimented a little bit with nudity. But you're going to have the comic where you can buy the black band edition, and it's going to have titties. Or, comics being comics, a dick. It's like the Batman Damned, you see the bat penis. They'll actually sell that as a selling point. I still believe, and other people have, we've speculated on this before, friends of mine, that the Batman Damned penis edition was absolutely done intentionally by DC. It wasn't a printing error. Wow, the ink just didn't quite saturate the page in the way that I think that was all a big hype generating scam. I think that I don't know. That's engagement farming. 2017 edition, is that when that came out? That's probably too late. Anyway, um, all these things are harmful. The thing that I think should worry people, unless you are one of those people who gleefully is waiting for the entire comic industry to die and implode, and yeah, hopefully you're not that person, because that person's that's just stupid. But you can get rid of the things you don't like and not collapse all of comics. Like, that's just a dumb. It's like Mark Waid saying, I'd rather, if Republicans are going to be writing comics, and I don't want comics to exist. It's not exactly what he said. My point is I'm going to take my toys and go home approach is it's not a good look on anyone, no matter who you might be. But in the 90s, when the variants and the gimmicks and everything else were out of control, what you did have was a backbone of love for comics. You did have that to fall back on. You had people who had been collecting for 20, 30 years, and even though the gimmicks were overblown, people could kind of squint their eyes and ignore it. And it was that group of people that saw comics through, that basically survived the glut of gimmicks and other bullshit, and allowed this thing to complete, allowed comics to weather the storm. The speculators, a lot of people buying bullet hole copies of the Punisher so they can stick their dick in it. Those people, they faded away. I had people who'd come in and like, I'm going to buy 10 copies of Youngblood number 10, and because I'm going to be able to send my kid to college with them. That person has left comics. That person isn't around anymore. Now with the current gimmick craze, we have those people are coming back to get into all this. But the reason why comics survived the 90s was because you did have a backbone of actual comic readers, people actually cared about the content, who were still buying comics. And what we've seen since then is, a lot of those people have aged out, got tired. Yes, some have died, but many of them have just gotten tired of the massive price increases and everything else that have gone along with comics, and they're just done. And comic books have not replaced those people with new readers. So unlike the 90s, that backbone, that foundation of people who are going to help keep you alive are gone or leaving. There's still some there, but not as many as there were during the 90s. So if you have a market crash, you have a gimmick, a bubble that bursts, it's a lot more dangerous in 2024 than it is in 1996. It's a lot more dangerous because you've eroded your core. So you need that core to weather the storm and survive to, the next safe point in comics. And I would argue that core is a quarter of the size it was back in the late 90s. And so that's all that spells bad things. Anyway, let me know what you think. Red Band Edition comics. You in? You buying? You don't care? Deaths to the market? Let me know in the comments below, and thanks for listening.